Welcome to Full Scope, a podcast with two guys in their 20s giving their perspective on the games that we love and the story behind it all. I'm your host, Wellington Burns, along with my counterpart, Savon Morris. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. It's going
That's
pretty good.
good. Well, we have a lot of topics to get into today, as usual. And to start it off, Boston had a thrilling Game 5 win against Philadelphia to close out the series in five. And, it was the game where Philly, it looked like they could close the gap. I mean, it seemed like there were stretches where they could close the gap and get back into the series and maybe push it to a Game 6. But Boston had some key defensive stops, some lockdown possessions, and Horford played a big role in that, and Marcus Smart, his defensive just versatility. Um, but in terms of that win and how they match up with Cleveland for the second straight year, and them, with all of the variables changing with Kyrie and Gordon Hayward out, them going back to their second straight conference final since '87, which is an incredible accomplishment. What are your thoughts on their win in the upcoming Eastern Conference Finals?
Well, I'm impressed with this young Celtics team that stepped up without two of their top tier guys. One, like I said earlier, was injured the first game of the season. The other, Kyrie Irving, was injured before the postseason began. And you would think they didn't have identity without Kyrie Irving. Yet they won a couple games without him. But to beat two teams to get to where we're going now. It's a kind of crazy experience to just watch with a young team and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Rozier who came out of nowhere. And then I think the one person I'm more impressed by is Marcus Smart. His consistency on the defensive side of the ball. He brings that tenacity. He brings that different element. He's a 6'4" type guy, but he can guard anybody in the league, and he'll
Yeah.
tell you he could guard anybody in the league, and that's what I liking him. He has that passion and pride to play the basketball and play legendary Boston Celtics basketball, and to be able to win those games and to be able to make a presence. I think this is a
Do
different team. This is a
do
different
you
team
also
with
feel?
with the
Yeah,
yeah.
with Smart, do you also feel like it's that Celtic grit that even gives him that extra edge as a defender? Like, because it's when you're a Celtic and you're playing in big playoff games, the allure of that is something that has to be. I mean, nothing has to motivate him, but it seems like that just knowing that that background and the histrionics of where you are, it seems like that's also something that he takes pride
Almost definitely. I believe so, wholeheartedly, because playing on the Boston Celtics in the legendary squad that they had back in the day with Larry Bird and McHale, all those guys who kind of solidified what Celtics basketball was. And then Marcus Smart missed a couple games in the regular season. You're without Kyrie Irving, without Hayward. You have to step up, and he steps up on the defensive side. He's not a big offensive guy. He doesn't shoot well. He doesn't have a 3-point shot. He's not that type of guy. He's more so the presence they need and want on the defensive side of the basketball. That's why you get guys like Kyrie Irving, or you let guys like Jason Tatum, who was picked I think third
in.
overall.
Yeah, third.
Guys like him step up and become one of the new figures of not just the NBA, but for the Boston Celtics without Kyrie Irving. But I was most impressed with the play of the younger guys. Al Horford, he played well. He's
He really
consistent.
dominated the matchup with Simmons. Like
He
that was
did.
something was really going to be huge because even with Embiid in Game 3, which was had so many possessions that could have gone differently. The missed dunk by Simmons, the untimely turnover by Redick. Then Simmons gets the offensive rebound and doesn't put it and puts it back up instead of just keeping it with 17 seconds left to get fouled. There were so many things in that game that could have changed, and what
Mhm.
and how Horford is just an efficient playmaker, reads the floor, and is great on like 3-on-4 situations. And it's just really incredible what he can do as a big man, and he's kind of the stabilizing force. I know many times you've even said he doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah.
Um, is he kind of like just that one guy you're like, man, like if they didn't have him, they'd really be in a different world of trouble.
I think he's more valuable than people give him credit for. And I'm one of those people who doesn't give him a lot of credit because he's a consistent guy we take for granted. I think he's one of those big men who can facilitate and actually shoot. actually shoot the 3-point jumper if need be. He's a guy who can shoot the jumper on the top of the free throw line. He could be that guy who can play good defense. He showed that in this series. But I think he is a guy is not valued as much because you already got these big guys that's in the trenches every single day, like DeMarcus Cousins, Anthony Davis. You got guys like Carl
Rudy
Anthony
Gobert.
Towns, Rico Bear, like those guys who kind of take the spotlight from him. I think he's the type of guy. Even when he was
Maybe
at
more
Florida,
glamorous,
yeah,
yeah, guys you would think of in terms of their position than Horford.
yeah. And I kind of jokingly said before that he's like a off-brand of Tim Duncan, but I think
Yeah,
that
I
was
really think that's a good comparison.
yeah, but I think he's just like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan wasn't a guy who was flashy. He played great defense. He could shoot. He didn't could shoot the three, but he could facilitate. He could play defense, and he was a presence. He was the big fundamental for a reason. I think that's the IQ, not the IQ, but the persona that Al Horford was given. I don't think he likes the limelight, anyways. I think he was given that persona because that's the type of player he was. His personality was how he was at Florida, but he definitely doesn't get enough praise or you know for being a consistent center, consistent
Yeah.
big man in the league.
Did it surprise you that Brad Stevens didn't get one vote for Coach of the Year?
Um,
Because like to be honest, like many times we can't really put into like perspective everything that's going to happen in the season. Like nobody
right.
envisioned Gordon Hayward was going to go out in 5 minutes or that Kyrie was going to not be available for the postseason. Do you think sometimes it doesn't just the full gravity of a season can kind of be too much to kind of take into consideration?
I think it was kind of it was bizarre. He didn't get, like you said, he didn't get more than one vote. Your top one of your top players goes out. Then you go on this phenomenal streak. No, you even came back and beat a Houston Rockets team that's pretty darn good, and you continue the
Yeah.
streak, and now you're winning without your top tier guy in Kyrie Irving, and then you went on a streak when he was out. It's like I don't think what goes in. It's a question of what goes into the. What do you think about of a coach of being
Yeah.
coach of the year? I give
I don't
it.
know what more it's like what more does he have to do?
Yeah, what more do you need? This guy has been like hands out. Like, okay, what do my two top guys are out? We're
Does he have to
still
win
because
does he have to win an Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron?
I don't know. It seems though. It seems as though that's what's going to happen. But I don't know. It is kind of baffling to see. Okay, Brad Stevens, young guy, still young guy in the league, has a pretty good team. Then
Yeah.
can't turns into a young team. That young team is beating people, and now they're facing LeBron James in Eastern Conference Finals. So he should be in line to be Coach of the Year. That's a great season in my eyes. I think it should be in everybody's eyes.
Now you were saying like Tyronn Lue, right, for Coach of the Year. Like that was kind of
Yeah,
that.
I still think so.
So you still okay. But yeah, he definitely has been just a phenomenal coach this year. And I know some people say like, oh, he gets too much credit. People act like he's the greatest coach ever. It's not really that. It's like when you lose two players. I saw a stat this earlier today that I think this is the first team to win two straight playoff series without their leading scorer being available
Yeah,
for one. Like that's astounding. Like
that's
when you're
big.
able to do that and just act like nothing, like there's no difference. Obviously, there is a difference. We're just acting like, hey, we're just gonna stay afloat and keep this thing going. That's really
Yeah,
commendable. But like we were talking about with the Eastern Conference Finals, they're facing Cleveland for the second straight year. LeBron is on arguably one of his best postseason runs, and there's so many postseason runs that have been phenomenal. But this one, with just having to carry a team in the first round and then getting a much needed help from the supporting cast in the second round. Um, what are your thoughts on that series? Because I think this Celtics team is better than last year's, even without their top two players. They're more talented. They have versatile wing defenders. I mean, like there's a slew of lottery picks on this team and in the starting lineup, and to me they just seem more equipped to defend. I still like Cleveland, but just because I think the LeBron factor is just overwhelming. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's going to be a tough series, and like you said, the Celtics are a different team, especially without two of them. We keep saying this over and over because it's the most important thing about the Celtics. They were without their top two guys,
Yeah.
and they're relying on a guy who was picked third round, a guy that has been in the league for a minute. I don't need to get into that. But what I think about the series is, I still give it to Cavaliers. I'll give it to the Celtics only because the Cavaliers are not the same team. I keep saying this all
I'm just
over
not
again.
comfortable picking against LeBron in the Eastern Conference final in the
See,
Eastern Conference playoff series. I'm just not.
I understand that, and well, that doesn't come lightly. But this is the tell of the tape. I think they match up well. I think they match up well, and I think they match up well against LeBron James. Not the rest of the Cavaliers. I think they match up well against LeBron James because if J.R. Smith is not shooting well, he's non-existent. He's not a defensive presence. If Kyle Korver is not shooting well, he's not a defensive presence. They're mad at Hood right now because he didn't want to get in the fourth quarter last game. And you take Kevin Love out of the paint and you make him shoot, he's non-existent. He's a good shooter,
Yeah,
but
but
he's
we
more
saw flashes of like Minnesota Kevin Love in the post. Like
exactly
they did just decimate the one seed like it was just a blip on the
nothing.
radar.
Nothing. And you can't let Kevin Love get back to Timberwolves Kevin Love, who used to go 40 and 20 every night.
Yeah.
And then the one I think they match well against LeBron James because I think they can stop LeBron James from being a facilitator. If you can stop him from being a facilitator and make LeBron be the enforcer, you can beat LeBron. Tire LeBron out. Don't let him get his eyes open where he can see people and get people open. That's the heart and soul of the basketball team. On this, I'd rather fight LeBron in the scoring than fight him in being a facilitator. That's where he's more dangerous at. Don't let him attack you. If don't You don't even have to double team LeBron. Make sure you have cut the lanes off.
So
I
you're
think they're
content with LeBron just going on a
most
scoring
definitely,
spree?
most definitely. Nobody can stop LeBron in the paint.
Right.
I'll see LeBron take 4 or 5 threes a game. He makes two of those. He's going to get his points regardless of what you do. Last game he really didn't have to. He didn't really have to make points because everybody else around him was making. They were hot. But I'd rather fight the enforcer driving to the hole LeBron than the facilitator LeBron any day. He's more dangerous finding people open and creating cut lanes because you're giving him time to bounce the ball, look, and dish it to somebody that's cutting, dish it to somebody that's standing on 3-point line. All you have to do, attack him, attack the 3-point line, and you beat the Cavaliers. They don't have another scorer. They don't. They don't
Yeah.
have another scorer.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely. The thing for me is just seeing how they. And I know we're going to get to the Cavs Raptors thing in the upcoming topic, but the thing with how Cleveland played in the last series, it just seems like the supporting cast is finally there now. Like they finally have arrived to the point where LeBron can conserve energy at points and not have to just do everything. And to me, that's the reason why I also like Cleveland in this series is because when you have Kevin Love having glimpses of Minnesota Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson being a presence on the glass, and Kyle Korver. I mean, the two-man action between Kyle Korver and Kevin Love has been extremely hard to defend, but Boston has the horses to do that.
Yes.
They have perimeter defenders who can neutralize that. But it's just to me, I still feel as though that just when you have LeBron playing at his just absolute peak and zenith, that to me that is still alarming when you do have a team that doesn't really have the full like deck of scoring power that they would have had with their other two stars.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron's
But
going
but
to be
but but but,
LeBron.
but like I said, I still feel I still feel like it will be a competitive series.
Yeah, I think so too. They'll match up pretty well.
So in terms of the amount of games, with like 6, 7, like what are you feeling?
I'd rather not say I don't have.
Yeah, it's so hard to
I don't have
predict.
it yet.
Yeah, the amount
Yeah,
of
it's
yeah.
too hard to predict because you could say you say it goes all the way to game 7. It all depends on the supporting cast for LeBron. LeBron's going to get 30, 40 points. He's going to be 38 minutes, 37 minutes. It all depends on J.R. Smith steps up, Kyle Korver. If Kevin Love can be that force, I don't think he can be
They
that
can be
force playing against
streaky.
Al Horford.
Cleveland can be
I don't
really
think he can be
streaky.
that force with Al Horford down there. I think Al Horford is a better defender than
Yeah.
Ibaka and I forgot the other guy's name for the Raptors. But it's going to be interesting. I can't say 4-2 or I can't say anything. I can't say that 4-3.
Yeah.
Yeah, just can't say.
Yeah. I mean, the Cavs, they still are struggling defensively. And their defensive rating in the sweep of the Raptors was 110.1. Their offensive rating was off the charts, 121.5. And they only had 103.0 against Indiana, but still that there are some defensive lapses. Dealing with Philadelphia, look, they hottest team in the league at one point on a 16-game winning streak without Embiid. It looked like they had the top line talent to make a deep run. After they kind of handled Miami pretty quickly, and then they faced a team that was more savvy, better coached, just was able to neutralize what their role players and shooters could do. But with their the off season with the questions of Markel Fultz and you've talked about like how you feel like he can be a major a major plug into the into what they're into the system that they have, and then the free agency questions with all the whether they want to make another a big move to even enhance the process. What are your thoughts on this their future?
I think the hashtag speaks for itself. Trust the process. Um, Nobody thought they would make the playoffs this year, and then everybody thought they were going to win the finals this year because of the young talent and what they were able to do in the the lottery and different places in the off season. Now they have another opportunity to go into the off season and get a couple more great players. And I think Ben Simmons needs to. They have a lot of potential, man. Ben Simmons needs to work on his creating his own shot and being a better 3-point shooter in the offseason. Joel Embiid is going to be Embiid. He's okay. Markel Fultz has to step up. He has to keep himself healthy and get into the mix of being a starter point guard.
There aren't
Covington,
there aren't any things with Embiid that concern or you feel because I do feel like there were some flaws in terms of just he at times for me seemed to kind of slow down what they were doing at times because it almost seemed like when he was out there there was like game 3 he wanted to get back in and Boston it almost seemed as though like they were content with him. They'd rather have him on the floor than not on the floor at times because the perimeter players weren't as involved as much and they kind of were just it was just the Embiid show in the post. Like, do you feel as though that can be an issue at times, or it's just you have to live with that with having a player of that stature?
I mean, I think it's more of the scheme of the coach, if anything.
Right.
You look at big men before. I know the big man persona has changed and became more versatile, shooting for standing on the 3-point line, shooting, facilitating, getting out of the paint. But I think you need that presence. They miss that presence in the paint. You look at guys like Shaq. When Shaq was in, the game was slowed down. But they still ran fast breaks, different stuff. Like even when, excuse me, when Tim Duncan was in the game, it's like different. I think they have to have that mindset. They have to have that, tool or that scheme in their back pockets. Okay, if we need to slow it down, slow their tempo down by slowing our tempo down. We need to put somebody in the post. I'd rather have Embiid in the post than anybody else. Embiid's going to be Embiid. What we're gonna get out of Embiid. He's a consistent player. Yes, he makes a few mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But I think
Yeah.
he's fine. I think it's more so on the point guards and the shooters around him. Even have him in the paint, he can back somebody down or have eyes and dish it out. It's just all about if guys are moving without the ball. I think Embiid is fine. Embiid is the most consistent thing on that basketball team.
He
They
is. Yeah.
missed Embiid, but I don't know. I think they have pool of potential. They have a lot of potential. They just have to tap into it even more this year, and adding people to the potential they already have. If LeBron is enticed and tempted by it, that could be. Oh man, that team would be a monster. That'd be a
Yeah, I
great
mean, the
team.
more and more I hear about that, the more and more I don't know if it's great for them because
What? Hmm.
because with Ben Simmons, if he doesn't have the ball in his hands a lot, what is he doing off the ball? And if there haven't been major enhancements, I just kind of wonder if that's going to be in the best interest of Simmons or Embiid because they have so much potential as it already is. And when you have a culture change, like anybody would want to have the best player in the world, one of the five greatest players to ever play the game. That's not a question. But it's just, is that the best thing for Simmons' present and future? And that's kind of what I question. I really don't think that. I really don't see that being a team that he's going to go to. He would go to.
If we're playing scenarios, I think that'd be perfect for Ben because working with LeBron or having LeBron on your team, you become not just a role player. Right now, I think Ben Simmons is a role player, even at the starting position, because he cannot shoot. That's why he looks to pass before he does anything. Now, when LeBron's on the game, you can still do that. I think Embiid even will be better because LeBron is a facilitator. LeBron only does what the team needs him to do. So when Kyrie's on the team, LeBron didn't have to take over as much as he gave the ball to Kyrie. Even with the Heat, he didn't really have to take over. If you really want to get the ball to Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh, he did so. I think Ben Simmons, it will help Ben's game if anything. Now they'll have to get rid of Markel Fultz and probably
Yeah,
Covington to bring
Covington.
LeBron there, but I think those guys are pieces that they can live without. You
Yeah,
take
you'll live
you take
without that to get LeBron. Like, yeah,
yeah
you'll be just
you can
fine.
live
Yeah.
without Covington and Markel Fultz. I think that'll be a good lineup. Having Embiid at the center of the power forward position, you can keep Ben Simmons at the point guard position and keep LeBron at the 2 or the 3 guard. I think that can
I,
work.
I'm
I
just
think
of the
it
notion.
can.
I'm just of the notion that the free agent that would best fit them is Kawhi Leonard. Like that's just who I really think that would fit that team. But I, if LeBron
Yeah,
came
I
there,
don't think so.
that's just me though. I mean,
Yeah,
but if LeBron came there, I just wonder how that would fit for Simmons. I don't know if that would be the best. Just how that would fit his role in terms of he has the ball in his hands a lot, kind of has to because he can't really do much outside of the paint, and that's where his success is found in.
and that's where you create friction and being uncomfortable to change his game and to work on his game. I think it'll be
Yeah,
perfect, but to each his own.
yeah, but going forward in terms of Brett Brown, there were some tactical errors he made, and some people were kind of, to me, overreacting, saying, "Oh, Brett Brown's not the guy for the job." Um, what are your thoughts on the coaching situation
Four.
for Philadelphia?
I mean, I don't need a. They don't need a coach.
They don't need a
Those
coach.
guys are good.
N-
Most
n-
of the time, those
No,
guys.
what I was saying was, do you think like Brett Brown like he should be the guy for them?
Sure. I mean, you don't need a great coach. I'm not trying to be like stale or anything, but you don't
Yeah,
need a great
you're kind of
coach.
like it really doesn't really I really don't care
It
who's
doesn't
who's on the
matter who the
side.
coach is. I know we're gonna get to the Pistons. It doesn't
Right.
matter who the coach is. The players coach themselves regardless. Yeah, you want to have a guy who can, scheme. Look at the Golden State. Golden State coaches themselves most of the time, anyways.
Mm,
So it really
I
doesn't.
love
I don't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter who the coach is for basketball. It does not matter who the coach is. It matters about the players. It matters about the players who are on the court.
yeah,
You know, I that's what I
I
think.
yeah, I mean, to me, coaching is a very important area.
Of course,
That
for you, of course.
your one of your favorite coaches, Greg Popovich, like he has a seismic impact on a team. Like to me, like there's just no way I can discount that. I believe that Brett Brown, is the guy for the job, but I'm just saying there is a point where look, you have to have a certain coach to be able to get to certain heights,
Mm,
and
mm.
And that's why I believe that Brown is the guy for that team because of what he's already established. And look,
Um,
this is their first playoff experience. Um, I felt as though the reason why I didn't think they'd get all the way to the finals is because you have to have a series where you don't really you almost felt as though you let a couple go away. And that's what Philly is going to look back at as though there were some games or just some situations that they could have capitalized on more that they just didn't. And that's just a part of, the proverbial, like they all say, the process. And so that's just kind of what's comprised of it.
I had like so many like
Yeah.
arguments to do with the coaching thing, but I rather not. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it this time.
When we get to Stan Van
I'll,
Gundy, you can bring them out. You can bring them
yeah.
out.
Oh yeah. Most definitely. Most definitely. It might come out. Peek out a little bit.
Um, the Toronto Raptors, they had uh, uh, probably their most successful regular season, getting home court advantage, but it's still was not enough in the second round against Cleveland as they got swept, and they had their 10th consecutive postseason loss to Cleveland, and LeBron he's just kind of com- owned them really. He's just had a seismic advantage over them in every series, and now they're at a position where they change the culture and everything, and they're kind of back. They're just the same position they were last season. It's like nothing was different, and DeRozan struggled mightily. He was on the bench in their game three comeback, and was ejected for a flagrant two in game four. But with all of the disappointment coming with another Cleveland loss, what are your thoughts on it?
They need more. They just need more. I think that's the headlines. They need more, and they need, and that's in the context. They need more for DeMar DeRozan. They need more from Kyle Lowry, and they need more for the front office. They need more from the fans. They need more from Drake. They just need more. They need more in Toronto. They
We're
need
demanding
more.
more
That's
of
all I'm going to
Drake.
say. I thought I'd add that in there because he's still in the headlines. But they just need more. I'm gonna let go with the statistics and all that. I just want to say, whoever listening out there, they need more. They just need more
Maybe
all around. They
what
need
if
more.
their consent being a 50 plus win playoff team, somewhat competitive, and just go through that proverbial just their playoff team.
That is, oh man, I can't even get it out. That would be the worst thing ever for an organization, let alone individual players like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry.
I'm
You
not
were
saying
the
that they
number
are.
one
I'm not saying
seed.
that
No,
they
I'm
are.
just saying they were the number one seed. They beat all the odds. I even gave them praise for them to not to step up and beat a team that's not even the same team from last year. They don't have Cal. They don't have Kyrie. They don't. They're not the same team. How do you get swept by the team that everybody had you beating? They need more. DeMar DeRozan was non-existent in all four games in the fourth quarter. Cal Lowry was the same way. Ibaka played decent in the
I
fourth
mean,
quarter.
Lowry, he did, and then I will say this: Game three, Lowry was huge in that comeback
That's
from
one game.
17. That yeah,
One
that was
game.
one, but that was pretty much the only one.
They need more.
Yeah.
every podcast we do, I always try to like have like a everlasting pitch or something. They're gonna remember they need more. When they're driving or listening or talking to somebody and say, well, yeah, Toronto does need more. They need more, Wellington. I just can't say anymore. Your top two guys did not show up. They did not show up. They're gonna be the stench they're going to have is the same stench that James Harden and the Rockets had last year when they were beat by the San Antonio Spurs. They can't
Yeah.
finish anymore.
Yeah, that's just gonna be ringing in my ear. Like you went through a whole you went through a whole segment where you're like, I'm not gonna give you any information. I'm just gonna say they need more. That's it.
They need more.
Go
They
ahead,
need more.
Wellington. But in terms of the fact that DeRozan, he attempted only like 9 3-pointers in the first 2 games, missed
Yeah.
all of them. Um, he wasn't just absolutely. I think it was a minus 29 in their last game. A couple of teams I think of that maybe comparable. 2004 Suns, they had a high octane
Mm.
offense with
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did.
D'Antoni, and then lost to the Spurs.
Yeah.
After Duncan made that game tying three to send it to overtime in one of those games, and then the 2015 Clippers, it looked like they could make a deep
Mm.
run, and then they
Yep.
lost to the Rockets with Harden on the bench and Josh Smith and Corey Brewer probably ignite one of the most confusing and just shocking comebacks we've seen in the playoff game for a while, and those two teams came up short. Is this even worse than that? Because like this is the first 1 seed to get swept in a semifinals series.
I think it is worse. Not because of the players or anything, just because of what type of narrative they had as being the number one seed and being a team that's have made it to the postseason multiple times and losing to the same team or losing the first round of playoffs. It's it's crazy. It's really crazy that it shows signs in the first game. To be honest, when
That first
they
game told a
were
lot.
yeah,
That first game told a
they,
lot. I mean, after just 1 day of rest, LeBron was completely spent. Has a triple double, and they win in overtime.
crazy. And into the series before that, like when they were up like 3-1, I believe, or 2-1, 3-1,
I
and
think 2-1.
they let them come back. I was like, what's going on here? You're the favorite. We're ready for you to beat the team. We're ready,
Yeah, turn the
Raptors.
0-2 into the 0-3.
Yeah, they did not. No, seriously,
We need to
like
stop these references because there's so much just despair going on in Canada.
it really is. They taking more L's than Nick Mill did. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it out there. It's really crazy though. They were the number one seed. They had DeMar DeRozan was having a great season. Even came out having depressions and anxiety and stuff like that. We're applauding
Right.
you. We're rooting for you, DeMar.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the skit that Drake and and Will Ferrell did about the handshakes at the ESPYS. You
Oh
remember?
yeah. Yeah.
That's super funny, Demar. Let's talk about his name. But anyways. But yeah, I mean, they just need more. They need more from the front office. They need to get more players in there. Serge Ibaka, it's not enough. DeMar, they have to show up. If they showed up in the fourth quarter, those games were in big disaster games, except for the last game. Okay, that was a
Yeah.
blowout. But
And,
the
and,
first three games were
and
winnable.
it yeah, and it seemed like that after the game 2 performance that LeBron had, where he just was hitting a ton of just jaw dropping fadeaways that were just almost seem like look, I'm just exposing this out of my arsenal and just seeing letting you guys see how I've extended my play. Do you feel as though after that game 2, in terms of them knowing that they really needed that game, that just kind of was the nail in the coffin, even though it was just only a 2-0 lead?
They didn't have an answer for LeBron. I think, like what I was reiterating. Sorry, about how to stop LeBron. They didn't do that.
Right.
The defense was lacking. They let players. Cal Korver was not existent in the first series or in the freaking regular season. At one point, I was like, why is Cal Korver not in? But you allow these guys. This is what happens when your defense is lacking, lackadaisy or whatever you want to say. I'm sorry, my tongue got stuck in my teeth. I'm sorry.
Lackadaisical.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, man, it's kind of crazy. I mean, they couldn't stop LeBron. They allowed LeBron to be the facilitator, the enforcer, in the defensive mindset, in a
Yeah.
bully. They can't stop LeBron. No one. They need more. But
They need more.
Wellington, they need more.
That's how we're ending
They
it.
need more.
That is how we're
Yeah,
ending this topic. They need more.
yeah, they need more.
So if you have any thoughts on the Raptors, they need more.
They need more.
Um, the Houston Rockets, they were able to beat Utah in Game 5 after a phenomenal performance by Chris Paul, 41 points, 10 assists, zero turnovers,
You
and he
would
said
say
it.
his stats first.
Yeah, I probably would. But he's leading. He's headed to his first conference finals, and now the vaunted compelling matchup that pretty much we all kind of expected to see this season after Daryl Morey just was constantly talking about, look, we're just thinking about them. Like that's the team we're thinking about. And Draymond Green was like, look, we're not thinking about them. You know,
Right.
he was like, we won two of the last three championships. They're just another team in the way to get to a third title. But in terms of just the fact that it's kind of a contrast in styles, Golden State has more ball movement. Houston, spot up threes and just getting to the foul line, and they're heavy in isolation play. And that first matchup was dramatic. The Warriors almost won with the baseline jumper from Durant, but it was just a second late. But with this matchup and just the backcourt matchup in and of itself is amazing with Harden and Thompson and a healthy Steph if he can stay up to par and Chris Paul. What are your thoughts on this one?
It's. I think this is the NBA Finals. If the West could play the West,
Yeah.
this will be the finals. This is what I wanted to see the entire season. You add Chris Paul, you add a couple more players. Capella is playing great basketball. James Harden is playing MVP worthy basketball, and you have the consistent Golden State Warriors. Houston Rockets leads the series 2-1. I think this is the only team that can keep up with the Golden State Warriors in the shooting realm. We all know the Warriors are the best shooting team in the league, and I think Rockets are a close second, right nipping at their heels. I think if they shoot well, if the Rockets can shoot well and play decent defense, they can win the series. No, hands down, they can win the series. If James Harden, he struggled last game. He struggled last game. I think he only had like 17, 18 points. It's like he had a terrible game. And Chris Paul, oh God, Chris Paul had a great game. Chris
Yeah.
Paul had a great game. Well,
You can admit it. It's fine. You can.
I'm not. I'm still not satisfied or convinced because now you play a guy who shook you and had you looking like a meme for the entire year. You don't forget
Yeah,
that.
that is
Yeah,
true.
Steph Curry
I
put
just
him
I
on
just remembered that.
skates. Now you have to guard him for an entire series, Chris. Good luck with that, buddy. But no, I think they match up well. They can shoot well. If the Rockets can continue to shoot well, which I think they had, they only had one off night in this playoffs, and that was when Utah Jazz won. But the
And
next night they went off.
game one against Minnesota, that was rocky.
Was it? I thought it was still a pretty good shooting. Well, not for no, Reese was shooting well. I thought James Harden was definitely shooting well.
I mean, Chris Paul.
That's his Chris. You talking about Chris Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was shaky. That I was talking about like everybody else. Like
Everybody. Okay, yeah.
PG, Tucker, Gordon, James. They were shooting well. But I think it's a good matchup. But I think Kevin Durant is not a factor in this. I think he's not a big factor because they beat him before 2-1. But I think the difference between the Rockets and wow, I had a blank thought, man. I think they can stop. I think they match up well against the Warriors, and I think they can stop KD, which last series did not happen. KD had a field day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, to me, if Harden, Paul, and Capella play well, and that's it, they're not going to win the series.
Pelicans.
Pelicans, yeah.
Yeah.
If those three play well, and it's nobody, and another player doesn't step up, I don't think Houston wins the series. If they have to have another spot up shooter like Eric Gordon, who's pretty much the only one out of those spot up shooters who can create his own shot and get to the rim, and even have a two-way effect, which the rest of them don't have. And to me, there were just lapses in the last series against Utah that kind of just concerned me against this team because
Mm.
when you let Joe Ingles get on a shooting spree and you don't, and it's not even like it's off of a turnover or off of a just a breakdown play. This is like half court sets and they're just not accounting for him. You can't do that against Golden State
Right.
because they have shooters everywhere that you have to account for. And when
Mm.
you can't take just one miscue and you get burned for it. And so to me, they're just gonna have to do something um different with the spot up shooters having to step up. If one of them can step up, they'll have a really good chance. But overall, I would say Golden State wins, just based on the fact that look, they're finally playing the brand of basketball that we felt like they can play anytime they want to. There was the complacency factor, and Green is locked in. Steph is looking better, and how and his continued help is going to be a major factor. But I would give the edge to them.
Mm. Yeah. We're just disagreeing all night, man. Yeah, I would give it to the Houston Rockets.
So
I
so so
give
you
it to
think?
the Rockets.
Yeah, I mean this is out of their 4 year run. I mean they've been 13-1 in playoffs. Houston, they have the elite scoring and the balanced playmaking. What is the biggest factor? Maybe I don't know. Maybe Capella, maybe Paul. Like, what's the most interesting, just maybe matchup or factor that stands out to you in this series?
I think the pick and roll. I think Rockets has the best pick and roll in the season. I think Utah did an okay job of stopping the pick and roll and made James Harden shoot. But I think if they can get it back into the pick and roll action, then that will be the difference maker. The pick and roll can lead to a lot of things, and James Harden has to shoot consistently against his team. He cannot have an off night. If he has an off night, then the Rockets won't win. But if he's on fire and he draws people in, that gives room for Eric Gordon, spot shooters like Trevor Ariza, who cannot create his own dribble or his own shot. He's
Yeah,
definitely a bona fide set shooter. But if James Harden doesn't have a good game, then they won't win. But the pick and roll has to be the difference maker, most definitely. Make them work against Capella. I don't think anybody on the team that well, I think KD might match up against Capella, but having KD on you, I think that's a good matchup too for James Harden if they switch. So the pick and roll has to be the number one factor for the Rockets to be successful.
yeah. I mean, to me, the most interesting thing is how Chris Paul orchestrates this type of offense against this caliber team. Because when Utah was trying to load up and neutralize the threes that Harden was taking, Paul was just having amazing mid range performances, just extremely efficient from the mid range, and that was something that was really interesting in terms of them having the advantage against Utah. Um, with Daryl Morey's comments this entire season, and then Draymond's comments about, look, this is not the team we're really thinking about. Um, do you think the obsessive factor, like, what are your thoughts on the contrast? Like, Houston is really obsessed with this matchup, and Golden State to them, it's just another one. Like, what are your thoughts on just the contrast of mindsets?
I think Draymond is being modest, to be
Right.
honest, because if you look at the competition they had in the West to get to the final NBA Finals, it hasn't been strong to me, to be honest. Even though they were down against OKC that
Three
one
one.
year, yeah, but still, the competition is definitely different with the Houston Rockets, and this is a team who matches up well with them. I think they're chomping at the bits to get to them. Yeah, they want to go to the finals and win again, but this is a great team. They haven't faced a great team like this in a minute in the final Western Conference Finals.
Is this
So
so you would say this is the best team they faced in this 4 year run?
I think the best team that matches up well with them, yes,
I
from
should say in the
offense to
West, yeah.
defense. Yeah, the West, offense and defense side. Yeah, backcourt, front court, it doesn't matter. They match. This is the only team that matches up perfectly with them. Even adding Kevin Durant in the mix. That's the crazy thing about it. I think they're both teams are chopping at the bits. I think Draymond. I think Draymond inside is like, yo, I wanted them. Like I want them. But it is at the same time he's saying, look, we want the finals too. I think Murrow was more honest. It was like, yeah, They're the best team in the West. We want to play the best to get to the NBA Finals. This is what we're looking for. This is the moment we're looking for. This is a championship in itself. Just like I said, Cavaliers and the Celtics would have been a championship in itself because the headlines and the history, the battles, everything, you know. So it has a different kind of
Yeah.
story. But I think both teams are like, yeah, okay, let's get it, let's go. We've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
Some people take the high road, some people just, are subtle.
Yeah, and it definitely has seemed like that. But Houston, look, a plus 8.5 point differential, best offensive efficiency rating, for most of the season. And look, they have the ability to play big with Capella or just play interchangeable lineups, which is a huge factor. But it really will be interesting to see, um, just how the if this really can turn out to be a great series. Um, this past week, I don't know this specific day, but the Pistons, they parted ways with Stan Van Gundy, and for the second straight year they didn't make the playoffs. And in 2014 they signed him to a 5-year, $35 million deal, and they feel like the credentials, like Tom Gore is the team owner, felt like just the leadership and the stalwart defensive he always established with the Magic, and would be something that could highlight what they wanted to do. And then the front court with Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond not working out in a late um, acquisition. But in terms of just the specific of a coach, and the coach also having the role of president of basketball operations, that is something that has been a struggle for some coaches, like we saw with Doc Rivers, him losing that position in the front office and just sticking to coach. Um, what are your thoughts on this firing and just how coaches have a struggle balancing both?
I think, like you just said, it's extremely difficult to have both jobs, and he made some terrible moves. One move was trying to get acquiring Blake Griffin and releasing one a solidified first round pick, and then obtaining Blake's big time contract that's going to be coming up sooner or later. He has great success with the Magics back in the day when he had Dwight Howard, Courtney Lee,
Rashard
Michael
Lewis,
Pitt, yeah, Petrus.
Hedo Turkoglu.
With all those guys, he had success. And then I
Was
wanted to,
Ryan
I wanted
Anderson
to
was Ryan
go
Anderson on that team?
right. Yes, he was.
Oh
He
wow,
was on that team.
that was
Yeah,
a
he
stacked
was on that
team.
team. That's when he like kind of became the 3 point. He was pretty good with the Hornets, but when he
And
went
now we
to
just see DNPs.
yeah,
We just see DNPs whenever you look. It's just DNP Ryan Anderson.
yeah, I think he would have been a big asset for them against the Warriors for that. Like you
Yeah,
said, DNP. That's his name, man. DNP. Okay, they need more. Okay.
I knew you were gonna bring that up.
But no, I mean, you go 39 and 43. You acquire a big name who can't create his own dribble. He's mediocre in the paint. You get him. You try to bring him in to go with
You weren't
Andrew.
really high on that pickup, were you?
No, no, that was a terrible. And you give up a solidified first round pick.
Right.
And then who else did he bring in? I can't. You spending first round picks on Stanley Johnson, Harry Ellison, Luke Kennard. Like, yo, really? Are you
Yeah.
serious? It was about time. You made the playoffs once. You lose your first round of playoffs. You were the fan favorite in the East starting off. You go 39 to 43. It's time. It's time, Stan. And I think it kind of like butted heads with him being the president of player personnel and the head coach. You need another guy who's different from you because you really can't see what you really need because you're the coach. That in the blind's eye, you think, oh, that's perfect. He's the head coach. He knows what the basketball team needs. He's been around the game a long time. No, you need a guy. Doc Rivers seen it. I think Tom Thibodeau seen it. There's a lot of guys who's been the head coach and the president of player personnel. The coach from the Atlanta Hawks. I can't remember his name. Oh man, it's crazy. He's not even the head coach anymore because of it. But it was just time. I
Mike
like Van
Budenholzer.
Gundy.
Mike Budenholzer.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't find it in my notes. I didn't want to scroll too much and lose my train of thought. But it was time. 39 to 43. You had 4 seasons to do something. You made some terrible decisions as a president of player personnel. Yeah, it's time to go. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like the right move for them to make. He had a 46% winning percentage for them overall. That was the best that they've had in a while. And it really seemed like just having no now the next coach, they're not going to have any first round picks.
Nope.
And like that that's just the mindset in that those were big errors. And then Drummond, Griffin, Reggie Jackson, they'll have a combined 74 million next season. So
Mm-mm.
it really was a disaster in terms of how things played out for them, because he to me he just really couldn't manage both. Like some coaches can do that, like Doc Rivers was able to do that for a stretch, but it seemed like just to be overwhelming. But for him, it really didn't feel like it was the right fit. And it's going to be interesting to see how the future plays out for them. Um, the Knicks, they hired a new coach, David Fizdale, and he put has emphasized, even with Memphis, and he butted heads with Marcus Gasol, and that wasn't able to work out as much. But he's emphasized a positionless style of basketball, and a more aggressive defense, because one reporter is asking him, would you just play Porzingis at the five? And he's like, why would we limit him? He can play multiple positions. Why would we just have to limit him to one position? And him being just a staff favorite with the Miami Heat back when the Big Three was there. In terms of the Knicks' future with Scott Perry, it's really been rare for a coach and the front office to be on the same page. Like, Scott Perry is like, look, the positionless style of basketball and aggressive defense is the direction we want to go to, like a modern view. Because Jeff Hornacek and Phil Jackson never really saw eye to eye, even though it was like, okay, we're thinking about tinkering with the triangle, but that's not something we really want to go to for the actual season. So what are your thoughts on this new pickup?
I think it was a good one for the New York Knicks. I think he has the ability to create and create and develop players. He's great at that. Even though he buddy has Marcus Gasol, he's been around championship contender team with the Miami Heat. You've seen great guys in Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh. He's worked with those guys firsthand. He has experience on both the collegiate and NBA level. I think he brings that grit that New York Knicks is missing when they used to have Patrick Ewing, the big guy, down in the paint. That I don't know. They're missing that identity. Philadelphia has trust the process. Cavaliers has the land. The
Take that for
Warrior has,
data.
yeah. So the Knicks need something. Porzingis, your best player went out. Porzingis, he comes back, and then he comes in with the mindset: I have this so much potential, or I have these goals for these players already, like Emmanuel
Moutier.
Moutier, thank you, and Lance Thompson. Like, I like a type of coach like that. Like, he's already brainstorming, looking at different, like, okay, I want you to be this Draymond Green type feel. I want to
Right.
bring this fast paced offense back. I want to center the offense around Porzingis and bring other players around him. They still have Joke and Noah. Like, that's the type of coach I like. I think he'll work well with the New York Knicks. They have a long way to go. They do, but I
Yeah.
think he's a good fit for them, to be honest.
Yeah. When I
Even
was
though
when I
I
was
don't
saying
think coaches don't matter. No, I'm
when I was
joking. They do
when I
matter.
was I knew you were gonna
I'm
bring that
sorry.
up,
I'm sorry.
because yeah, because you really I can tell you really do hold that premise. So look,
I do.
we just agree to disagree. But
Toast LeBron.
when I was saying take that for data,
I'm sorry.
I I was surprised you didn't catch that reference. Take that for data. When he had
Yeah,
that. Okay.
I did. I just
Um,
wanted to. Yeah.
but in terms of in terms of him being at a team where it's not a perennial playoff team, and he can integrate himself with the players quickly, do you think that gives him a little more breathing room for it not being a perennial playoff team, or do you think just the expectations in a big market may be a little overwhelming?
What you broke? Oh, you broke up there. What did you say? I mean, you
Oh,
broke up.
sorry. I was saying in terms of him being at a team where it's not a perennial playoff team, and he does have the leeway to integrate himself with the players more quickly. Do you think, just in terms of it being a big market, even though they're not a perennial playoff team, do you think that's still a lot of pressure for a new coach in this environment?
Almost definitely, most definitely. Um, they want to see right away success, but I think that should be out the window, especially with a young team that you have to refocus and you have to go back to the drawing boards. You have these guys that you spend a lot of money on that's not reaping dividends or anything like that. It's not bringing any spice or some excitement to the game or to the basketball team. So he's going to have his work cut out for him. But I think it's going to be hard for him because the expectations and the expectation he sets for himself in the basketball team is going to be extremely high. Because you want
Right.
to be successful, you don't want to get the axe, like Stan Van Gundy just did, playing,
Yeah.
being there 4 years. So it's a lot of pressure. It is a lot of pressure being a head coach, and he's been a head coach before. So I feel like he's ready for the job, but it's going to be some scrutiny, most definitely,
Yeah.
coming in for the Knicks, especially from shoot, I always forget his name. Oh, Spike Lee. Sorry,
Spike
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee, yeah.
Spike
Yeah.
Lee's going to be on the sideline giving him the business, man.
Yeah. Like as he would do with everybody
Yes,
who's in
this
a
is
position
true.
like that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely feel as though he's an ideal new coach for a team like that, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Um, Transitioning to college football, Lane Kiffin at FAU, he had um, a pretty successful season. They went on a 10-game winning streak near the end with a high scoring offense, an aggressive defense. And, he's always been a brilliant offensive mind, as many coaches have said, but there's been the spurts of just not really connecting, being in really bad situations with the Raiders, Tennessee, Southern California, and just him being difficult to work with. And then the most glaring one with Alabama when he was offensive coordinator, but wasn't there for that second national championship, and felt like he could have had an integral part in that, and just how that kind of played out with Saban saying like it was mutually agreed upon, but it did seem like there were some things behind the scenes that kind of blurred that. In terms of FAU and just kind of how they're like there's teams like UCF who had a great season, and other teams where we feel as though they're never going to get the nod to that college football playoff, or that position where they can really be on a national stage. And with Florida, and now with Florida Atlantic with him, and him kind of having an established successful season, where do you think the future? What do you think the future will entail for him?
For the next 3 4 years, I think he's happy. I mean, you said that in different interviews and different articles that he's happy. This is the happiest he's been for a long time, being with a team that will not will not ever get to the playoffs or be the team standing on the hill looking down at everybody else that they defeated. But I think he's happy. The next 3 4 years will be the stage where he's content with his coaching career. And he said it multiple times in different interviews and articles that his ego is out the way. And that's why he's so happy.
Yeah,
Like you said, Raiders, USC, Tennessee, even with Bama, he had a different found. He was chasing the money, chasing, okay, how can I get the big coaching job and different things that had been difficult to work with. But now I think the next 3 4 years, he'll be content with being happy and being and getting FAU back to the glory they were back in '07. I mean '08 to '09. They were pretty darn good in the Sun Belt Conference when they moved to Conference USA. But I think he's going to be. I think he's happy. Next 4 years, he'll build that program up, and then he'll go to another team, a team that'll be suit to fight for the national championship. But right now, I think he's content. He's happy.
So,
He's really, really happy. It's South Florida. It's Fort Lauderdale.
yeah,
Boca
great
Raton.
weather.
Yeah, he loves it. Instead of being hot Alabama or hot USC with with earthquakes in Tennessee, like
Yeah.
Florida is the ideal place for him. I think this is where he reimagines who he is as a coach, husband, father, or whatever the case may be, and you go down to a smaller school and revamp who you are.
So you see it as a transition period for him, and not
Yes.
like just a situation where he can just kind of get settled again.
I think he said it has to be a special situation for him to leave FAU.
Mm-hmm.
A special. Meaning, what I drew from that, well, it has to be a team that he knows that he looks at it. And he even said this. He said, "I used to look at, okay, how can I be great as a head coach? I never looked at, oh, is the AD good? Who's the AD? Who's the president? Who's this or that? Are they really helping the program? Looking at everything outside of what football is. I think
Yeah.
he has to be okay with the athletic director, the president of the college, with this coaching style. I think he said it has to be a special situation. It has to be the perfect team, or he doesn't
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah, it definitely seems like for that one, it's one of those situations where it really has to be an ideal scenario.
Yeah.
But like you said, the transition period does seem to be FAU and what he's doing there right now. Um, Tom Herman had in his first season at Texas had a pretty rocky season with the first loss at Maryland and that fiasco that was, and then Sam Ellinger showing some signs against two of the top three picks, USC, but then he fumbled at the goal line in the second overtime, and then against Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield, and then threw an interception in the end zone, and just had some bright moments, but also had some situations where, look, he didn't fit the criteria for what a an elite quarterback would be in a rich quarterback driven Big 12, because that's kind of what you have to have success in, and they haven't had that type of top tier quarterback since Colt McCoy in 2009, and it's really been a drought of that happening. And in terms of where they're headed and them trying to get that clear, because Tom Herman, he's very like he really thinks Sam Ellinger can be that guy, but he has had a tendency to generate a lot of turnovers and key situations. Do you really think he has the ability to change the narrative and get Texas back to a successful tenure?
I mean, the sky's the limit. To be honest, when they hired him, I didn't know who he was. I started looking at his track record, but I think he had too many expectations for him and himself and the team included. Because when they played Maryland, it was so many flaws that were highlighted, so many on the defensive side, and it showed all season. Uh, Rushing defense was terrible. They were 96. It They were 96. And you're
Yeah.
supposed to be a top tier team. That's rush defense. They have to change it on the defensive side. They have to beef up. They were 41st in passing. That was all in the first game, I believe, against the Maryland. Maryland put up 51 points. So and I think Texas
After
is so
losing their
hard.
starting quarterback.
Yeah, true. And then I think Texas as a school and the AD of Texas, they're so hard on their coaches. It's kind of hard. You got to have that mindset. Okay, we have to be successful now, 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 now. They don't have time
Do you
to
think the
develop.
instant do you think the instant expectation of success is what kind of can do? Because Tom Herman said, I put too much pressure just on myself.
Yeah,
Do you think like
most definitely.
that's kind of what maybe derailed it?
Now it was multiple factors.
Yeah,
That was
I'm
one.
not saying that the main driving
Yeah.
factor, but do you think it kind of was like, whoa, like just it's not the expectation shouldn't be that high so quickly.
Well, you look at their track record and they're winning, being successful in the years with Vince Young being at the quarterback position. You'll have that. It comes with the territory. You look at Florida. Jim McElwain kind of drowned in that sea of success that they wanted him to be successful. Now he won went to the SEC championship 3 or 4 times, but they wanted more. It's these programs want more, especially if they have won national championships and been in that spotlight. They want to get back to it as soon as possible. So when they hire people like Charlie Strong, who's there, he wasn't successful. They got rid of him. It comes
Yeah,
with the territory, but it does play a factor. It's a lot of pressure on these new head coaches coming into these programs that's been successful in recent and previous years that they want that same success. And you don't do it, then you're on the chopping block. And it's not fair to the head coaches who are just coming into the situation. They didn't recruit. They come in and players they haven't even recruited, or players they don't know. They have to figure things out, and then they get 1 or 2 years to recruit themselves. That's not enough time. They don't get enough time to, you know, get
yeah.
acquainted with the system, and it does play a role going into top contender teams like that, especially as a new head coach.
Yeah, inside Orlando, their defensive coordinator, he instilled kind of a edge to that defense, and they were almost kind of in a lot of these close games they lost. They were in them. They really had a chance to win these games. And he said when you first get to a program and you're trying to get everybody in the same alignment of culture, the way that we do things, football is secondary, maybe even third. You don't even think about that. To close this topic out, do you agree with that notion that that's really not the primary thing, even though obviously that's what you want to be successful at, but it's more so of the culture?
Yeah, I think so. Because if you if you get the entire team to buy into what you're selling as a head coach, then it'll make everything smoother, make them coachable, make them wanting to learn more about your system that you're implementing into their minds. So
Yeah,
if they let them make them fall in love with the culture of Texas Longhorns, the rich history of Texas, everybody's on the same page. I know teams that were not the greatest teams and they still won the national championship or the NBA title or the Super Bowl, but they were on the same page. It was on one accord. Most of the times when the Patriots won the Super Bowl, they didn't have the most talented team. There's more time. I mean, the first couple of years they went to the Super Bowl, they had a great defense, but the offense was lacking. The defense kept them in the games most of the time with Teddy
yeah.
Bruschi, Ty
That was
Law.
such a contrast because Brady wasn't even a
Yeah.
dominant offensive player yet.
So it's teams like Green Bay Packers, they weren't the better. The Steelers was a better team than Green Bay back in 2010. But
Right.
everybody was on the same page at Green Bay. They had the 1-2. But if you get them to buy into the system, buy into the culture of what you're trying to sell, then it'd be any talented team any day. Any day. Any day of the week.
Yeah, definitely. Um, our last topic for today is Matt Ryan and the lucrative contract he signed last week.
Yeah.
I um I completely forgot last week when we were doing the podcast. I was gonna talk about it, but him signing a 5 year, um, 30 million, 100 million is guaranteed, I believe, and
Mm-hmm.
him having you know some pretty high moments, pretty low moments. He does have a 4-6 career playoff record. He was a part of that 28-3 blown um, Super Bowl loss
Yeah.
to New England and miss and had a close loss to the eventual champions Eagles in the divisional round this year. So in terms of him getting a contract like that, and we think of the top tier quarterbacks like Brady and Rodgers and Roethlisberger and Drew Brees, and and in terms of the mold that Ryan can fit in, because that last year, I mean, it was there. That Super Bowl was there. It really felt like it was going to be the climax of his career, and just a detrimental effect going forward in terms of just the opportunity that was left on the table. But in terms of the lucrative contract that he signed, and if he really is a top tier quarterback, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't like it. We talked
Really?
about inconsistent quarterbacks. I think he's one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks in the league right now. Given the MVP season that he had 2016, or what it was 2016 17, still this year, he didn't look like MVP quarterback. 18 less touchdown passes, 5 more interceptions, nearly 900 fewer yards. He wasn't a top tier quarterback. You give this guy 5 more. I think Arthur, I love you to death, man. I interned with you back in 2016, but come on, man. It's just
Yeah.
like when the Jaguars gave Blake Bortles an extended contract. I think they should have drafted a quarterback like Blake Mayfield. I thought that's where he was
Yeah.
going.
Baker.
But yeah, but I just don't agree with it. You could have used that money. He's 33 years old. Man, I just don't like it. He's declines every single year. That one single year, he had a great season. I take
Do you
nothing from
think
him.
do you think there are quarterbacks who can have like one great year, like Cam Newton? He had that one great year, hasn't gotten that far outside of any other season. Do you think there are quarterbacks who kind of like middle of the pack that can have this amazing season, but that really doesn't define the type of players they actually are on a consistent basis?
I definitely agree. You look at Joe. The one player that comes to mind right off the bat is Joe Flacco, and he was carried by a stout defense that they got rid of the next year because they had to pay everybody. I understand that, but still, Joe Flacco. He didn't have a great season. He had a decent season. Yeah, he was decent. Yeah, he was decent. But you had a great defense to back you up. Man, And you said Cam Newton. Cam Newton was because he came in the league slanging the ball. He was consistent. Cam Newton's been consistent, and then he finally got his big break when they added the right variables to the defense and offense. But those guys like Joe Flacco, Matt
Hmm.
Ryan, Blake Bortles, um, Sam Bradford,
Yeah.
even Teddy Bridgewater. I was never big on Teddy. Teddy had a terrible pro day. He did decently. He lost his starter position. It's so much that plays a role into that, but those guys are not top tier. I think they're mediocre quarterbacks. They have a great system behind them, but giving him that contract, I think you could have used that money for another cornerback, another D lineman or something. No,
Yeah.
I just don't agree with that. I
And
digress though.
yeah, and it seems like these some of these quarterbacks in the past that have gotten these lucrative contracts haven't fit the narrative or the bill of just actually, being that great. Um, in term, the last question I have for you to close this podcast out, in terms of the new coordinator with Steve Sarkisian and him kind of having another target with Calvin Ridley coming in, and then still the Devontae Freeman and the running back options there. Do you think the offense takes another step, or is this still a middle of the pack type of team?
No, they have weapons all around, man.
Yeah.
If Devontae Freeman can continue to enhance himself in the run game, I think the biggest hot spot was their running game last year. They were eighth in the league, and they were 23rd in passing on the offensive side. I think that was the highlight of their offense was the running game with Freeman. But you add Calvin Ridley in the slot, you still have Gabriel. We don't know. I think Julio is still with them, but Julio hasn't been showing up to any of the OTAs or
OTAs.
practices or anything like that. Well, OTA starts soon. He didn't come out to different workouts and stuff like that. But you have Julio Jones, Sanu, Calvin Ridley, Gabriel. You still have Coleman. You still have
Yeah.
Freeman.
They have a plethora
The only
of
thing missing is a
weapons.
quarterback. If they just had a quarterback, I'm joking. All right, I'll be facetious, but they take a step forward.
Hmm.
They adding Calvin Ridley as a deep ball threat in a slot receiver that just adds more fuel. Their, their
Yeah.
offense should be good. It's high expectations, especially for Matt Ryan. You can't
Yeah,
mess this up.
it definitely is going to be a lot of expectations with him and this type of contract going forward.
Hey, Wellington,
Yeah,
they don't need more. They got enough.
they don't need more.
They don't need more. They
They're
got
just
enough.
fine.
They have
Yeah,
enough. They have enough on the
yeah,
offensive side. Don't add anybody else.
yeah. And yeah, but that should be definitely interesting to see how that goes forward in terms of his continuing tenure. Well, that wraps it up for today. I'm your host, Wanza Burns, along with my counterpart, Savon Morris. This has been Full Scope. See you later.